Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. I rise in support of H.R. 1560, the Protecting Cyber Networks Act. At some point, we need to stop just hearing about cyber attacks that steal our most valuable trade secrets and our most private information and actually do something to stop it. At some point, we need to stop talking about the next Sony, the next Anthem, the next Target, the next J.P. Morgan Chase, and the next State Department hack, and actually pass a bill that will help ensure that there'll be no next cyber attack. A few weeks back, the House Intelligence Committee held an open hearing on the cyber threat to America's private sector. We heard from witnesses that their businesses were cyber attacked billions of times a day. Not thousands, not millions, but billions. The threat to our economy, our jobs, and our privacy from not acting is massive, and it is certain. We see it happening all around us, so we must act now. That's why I'm proud to support this bill. The Protecting Cyber Networks Act provides for voluntary information sharing of cyber threats between and among private and public sectors. It does what no executive order can do. It incentivizes cyber threat information sharing, providing limited liability protection. Now companies can pool their resources and say to one another, I found this malicious code or this virus in my system. You need to protect yourself against it as well. And now the government can better warn companies of an impending cyber attack, just as it can for an approaching hurricane or an impending flu outbreak. But let me be very clear about this. To get the liability protection, a company that chooses to participate must remove any unrelated private information prior to sharing. This is something privacy advocates and I called for when previous information sharing bills came before the House. Unlike prior bills, this measure requires the private sector to strip out private information. In fact, the bill has two, not one, privacy scrubs. The first happens when a company shares with another company or the federal government, and the second happens when the federal government shares the information further. This bill even holds the government directly liable if it doesn't do what it's required to do. Second, to get the liability protection, a private company wishing to share with the federal government must go through a civilian portal. To be clear, a company can't go directly to the DoD or NSA and get the bill's liability protection. The lack of a civilian portal in previous bills was another key privacy group criticism, and this bill has resolved that issue too. In fact, of the 5 main criticisms of prior cyber bills, this bill has resolved each of them. It has private sector privacy stripping of information. It has a civilian portal. It also has narrow restrictions on what the government can use that shared cyber threat information for. Gone is a national security use provision. Gone is a vague terrorism use provision. And what's left is only the most narrow of uses to prevent cyber attacks, to prevent the loss of life, to prevent serious harm to a child, and to prevent serious felonies. Gone, too, is any question of whether offensive countermeasures or hackback is authorized. This bill makes clear that you cannot take anything but defensive actions to protect your networks and data. And lest anyone be confused, this bill makes clear in black and white legislative text that nothing in the bill authorizes government surveillance in this act. Nothing. What this bill does is authorize voluntary private sector sharing of cyber threat information, and allows the government to be able to quickly share threat information with the private sector, just as we need the CDC to put out timely warnings and advice on how to counteract this year's flu strain or how to prevent a local disease from becoming an epidemic. In addition, the bill requires strong privacy and civil liberties guidelines and intense reporting requirements. The bill before us today strikes the right balance between securing our networks and protecting our privacy and addresses the privacy concerns that I, among others, raised last session. However, there are still some improvements that are yet to be made as the bill moves forward. In particular, we need to further clarify that our liability protection only extends to those who act or fail to act reasonably. Before closing, I want to thank Chairman Nunes for his leadership, for working so hard on this bill. It has been a great pleasure to work with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm grateful for all of the hours and energy and talent that you and your staff have put into making this bill successful. I want to thank all the members of HPSI, as well as the Judiciary Committee and Homeland Security Committee for working together on this. We had many differences of opinion, and we still have some, but we kept our eyes firmly on what is best for the American people as a whole. With that, we found ways to come together and produce a stronger bill. I hope we can continue to work together as well with the Senate and with the White House and all stakeholders to produce an even stronger bill for the President to sign into law. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of our predecessors, Dutch Ruppersberger and former HPSI Chairman Mike Rogers. We have come this far in part because of the good work that they did during the last couple sessions. And I also want to thank all of those that came to speak with us and provide their input in making this a better bill. Every day we delay, more privacy is stolen, more jobs are lost, and more economic harm is done. Let's stop sitting by and watching all this happen. Let's do something. Let's do what this administration has urged us to do and pass this bill, and let's do it now. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.